So as somebody who has over 1 million YouTube subscribers on my main channel, I've been writing scripts for years. And especially when I first started my YouTube channel, I would spend sometimes up to 40 hours a week writing scripts. But what most people don't know is how I transformed from spending 40 hours a week writing scripts to just a few hours a week. And eventually, no time at all on my main channel. And by the way, these aren't just any scripts. These are scripts that became viral and grew my YouTube channel to over 1 million subscribers and making up to $325,000 a month. Because yes, I've been on both ends. I've been the person who spends a crazy amount of time on scripts. In fact, I've spent hundreds of hours on a single script before just to see the video bomb. Then I've also been on the other side where I spent less than an hour on the script and the video went viral and got millions of views. And because of that, I've been able to identify what actually matters when it comes to script writing. And that's exactly what I'm going to be telling you today, the stuff that actually matters. So whether you already have a YouTube channel, business, or you're just starting out, this is going to be great for you. In fact, even if you are an advanced YouTuber, you're going to get a lot out of this because I'm going to be talking about the most important stuff that you should probably be spending more time on and spending less time on the other stuff that doesn't matter. And in this video, you're going to learn why scripts matter, what types of scripts are best for you, the 3-step 30-minute YouTube script formula, how to integrate AI into your script writing, and not just any AI, but the absolute best AI and the best way to use it, how to research content for your scripts, and how to produce great scripts when you don't have time to do it yourself. And then at the very end of the video, I'm going to demonstrate how I write a script. So I'm literally going to show you step by step exactly how I write a script and do it live. Now, this script writing system that I will teach you has been implemented by other people in different niches with great success. So this isn't just something that only works in one niche, right? Because you might be thinking, well, I make content in this niche or that niche, or I make content with this type of format or that type of format, so it might not work for me. No, this script writing method works in all different types of niches and all different types of formats. For instance, Sean grew from 30K a month to over 500K per month in revenue, and he uses this exact script writing format that I'm gonna teach you. Wiz closed over 100K per month worth of deals, and he said that almost every sale that he got this year, YouTube had been a part of their journey. And he uses one of the visual script writing methods that I'm gonna talk about. So if you appreciate me doing this type of content, let me know by gently tapping that like button, and let's jump into it with talking about first, why do scripts matter, right? Why should you even spend your time writing scripts? First of all, scripts make sure that you actually deliver value. Now, value is kind of this nebulous concept. It's kind of difficult to say what value even is because value to one person might be different from value to another person. For instance, some people really like visual aids. Some people like it when you write stuff. Other people like it if you show a lot of data and evidence. But with that being said, no matter what your version of value is, or what your audience's version of value is, writing a script is going to ensure that you're able to deliver that value in the way that you want to. Additionally, well-crafted scripts help to retain viewers longer, and this is also known as increasing watch time. And watch time is incredibly important because when people come to your video, the amount of time that they spend watching your video or watching your content in general is going to be a signal to the YouTube algorithm that you make good content. And so anything that can increase your watch time is going to be a good thing. Now, additionally, and this might be the most important thing, is that writing scripts makes your content sticky. Right? It makes your content memorable and engaging because instead of trying to think of stories and anecdotes or ways of making your content easier to consume off the top of your head, you can write that into a script and it just makes your content sticky. And we're gonna go into deeper detail on exactly how to do this later on in the video. Now, another thing I wanna mention is you can be a master of whatever subject that you're talking about, but if you aren't able to communicate those ideas to other people in a way that they understand and emotionally resonate with, then they won't watch or take action. And because of this, you won't get views and you won't make money. So scripts matter to effectively make money on YouTube. But there are many different script types out there. So you might be thinking, what method should I use? And yes, there are a lot of different script types out there, but generally speaking, you need to understand that a script can be a lot of things, but a script is a guide. Most YouTubers don't read their content word for word, especially if they're talking head YouTubers that look directly at the camera. There are a few exceptions. But even if you write things out word for word, usually when you deliver the content, you're gonna kind of improvise. because this makes the content come across a lot more natural. Whereas if you do read things word for word, it's gonna take a lot of practice for the content to come across naturally. You might think of news anchors, for instance. Some news anchors, they sound very conversational. It sounds like they're kind of just talking to a friend. And then other news anchors, you can tell that they're reading off of a script, right? They're reading off a teleprompter and they're reading it word for word. And of course, with practice, you can read things word for word off of a teleprompter if you want, but a lot of the times the script is just going to be a guide and you'll end up saying things in your own words. Now, one of the most simple examples of a script is just simply a flashcard with bullet points. And by the way, this is a method that I still use to this day. So if you think this is a basic method that you shouldn't be using, I use this method to this day, and a lot of clients that I've consulted with also use this method. And it's literally just a flashcard, right? I have a flashcard right here actually from a video that I made the other day, right? And I use this method all the time. This is especially good if you're talking about something that you're already an expert in and you're basically just riffing, right? You're basically just doing what I like to call a yap session and kind of talking off the top of your head. And you just want a little bit of help keeping things organized, right? Maybe a reminder to tell this story or get into that point, etc. Right? So it's kind of like a yap session, but with a little bit more organization. Now, additionally, one that's very similar to this is doing the same exact thing, but doing it on a whiteboard, and then you put the whiteboard behind the camera. So with the flashcard method, you might put the flashcard in front of the camera or above the camera, or I guess you could put it down here, but the problem is you're probably gonna be looking down and it's gonna be really obvious that you're looking at a script. Sometimes that doesn't matter, but it's just preference. But with the whiteboard, you can just, put it on a stand behind the camera and then you just look above the camera and you'll see the whiteboard. It can also be a flowchart or what I like to call a visual prop. So this is basically, a flowchart. Here's an example of me using this on the screen right now. This is a Miro board. And again, it just keeps things organized. So obviously I'm not gonna read the flowchart word for word. I'm gonna look at the flowchart, I'm gonna see the words on it, and then I'm just gonna riff off the top of my head. And again, it's just a way of keeping things organized. And in some cases, you might show the flowchart on camera, or you might have the editor put the flowchart in post-production, or you might not show it at all. It's just a flowchart that is for your reference. And with the flowchart, there's several different ways of presenting it, and I'm not gonna go deep into how to present the script because this is about how to make scripts, but you could put it on the screen and then you're looking at the screen like I'm doing in this video, or you can actually just put the flowchart on a teleprompter that's right in front of you. It can also be a Google Doc, which could be a full script or bullet points. So here's an example of me using a Google Doc. And in this particular case, I'm actually sharing the screen as I use the Google Doc. And you can have a Google Doc that's white, or you can actually just black out the Google Doc and have white text, which is easier for you to read. And again, you could have the full script or you could use bullet points. Now, this is a very common method, and I would say this is the most common method that I've used throughout most of my YouTube videos on my main channel. And then it could just be a slide presentation just like this one. So this is literally what I'm looking at right now. Now you can just read the slide. This is what I'm doing. Or if you wanted to, you could actually put notes in the notes section and then present the slide in presentation mode where you can see the notes, but your audience can't see them. Now there's a lot of different presentation software out there. Of course, you could use Google Slides. That's what I'm using right now. Then of course, you've got PowerPoint and Keynote for Apple. I like to use Google Slides just because it's very easy to share the slides and make edits with your team. Now, along with the type of script that you use, there's another way of categorizing scripts, and that is the format of the script. And some of the main script formats are listicles. Here's some examples of listicles. And you can see that I use these on my main channel all the time. But there's also how-tos. Here's some examples of how-tos. And this is basically how to do something. And then very similar to how-tos are step-by-step guides. And step-by-step guides are also similar to tutorials. Typically, how-tos are gonna be more like high-level overviews of how to do something, whereas step-by-step guides are gonna be doing something exactly as you would do it step-by-step. So just as an example in this video, it's a how-to at first, but then at the end, I'm gonna show you a step-by-step guide where I'm literally doing the script with you on the screen. Then you've also got documentaries. Here's a few examples of these. And these are usually a series of events that explain a topic that is happening or has happened. And then you've got news style content. And this is especially popular in certain types of niches like personal finance. And it usually starts off with some big news. And then sometimes it morphs into other types of content, right? So a lot of the time it'll start off with a big news, and then it might morph into a how-to video or a listicle style video. And here are some channels that oftentimes do make news style content. And there's honestly many other types of formats, but generally speaking, if you're making educational content, these are going to be some of the best ones to make because they can get a lot of views and they can also convert people. However, there are other formats of scripts. For instance, you've got challenge style videos. Mr. Beast makes a lot of these. An example of this in the educational niche would be Bia Heza. There's also podcast videos, which are pretty obvious. Those are very similar to interview videos. And then you've got case study videos where you break down how you, one of your clients, or someone who's really well known in your industry achieved some type of outcome. However, one thing is certain. Every format at its core is actually just a listicle. Think about it. Books are made of chapters. And what are chapters? They're basically just lists. Essays, usually there's an introduction, there's 3 main points that you make, and then there's an outro. What is that? It's a list. Step-by-step guides, there's usually a series of steps that gets you to an outcome. What is that? It's a list. Even movies, they usually follow a 12-act structure, and each act has 3 subparts to it. And what is that? It's a list. It's a list of 37 different parts. So everything at its core, when you really break it down, and if you're really scientific about it, is a listicle. And that is how I write content, right? Whether I'm creating an actual listicle or I'm creating another format of content, I basically create it always as if it's a listicle. And this is what I always recommend to my clients because it makes it very attainable, right? It makes it very obvious what you need to do in order to achieve the final outcome that you want, right? You break the content down into a series of steps to get from point A to point B, and those series of steps are a list, whether it's a how-to video, or a case study, or a challenge video, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's a listicle. And for this exact reason, we're going to be using listicles for the rest of the video. All right, so now let's talk about the types of listicle scripts. First, you've got opinion-based listicles. And these are where you give your opinion on a list of things, and it's very obvious that it is your opinion. So here are a couple examples. You've got the most useless degrees. This is one of my best videos. It's got, I think, over 4 million views now. And it's me basically giving my opinion on what degrees in the United States of America are quote unquote useless or the most useless. And then the second one is the 8 hardest majors in college. Obviously, this is going to be an opinion-based video as well, because the hardness of a major is subjective. Then you've got fact-based listicles. So this one on the left, 19 work-from-home jobs that you can do at night. It is a fact that you can do these jobs at night, right? Because we looked up in the video actual examples of job listings of companies that are hiring these jobs at night, right? So that's a fact-based listicle. Then on the right, we've got the highest paying college degree video. Again, these are facts that you can look up online. You can look at government websites or data that's available online, and it is a fact that these are high paying college degrees, right? College degrees that might make you a millionaire, right? And again, that is a fact, right? It's not something you can argue. Now, generally speaking, when it comes to whether you should make opinion-based listicles or fact-based listicles, it really depends on whether you're an expert on the subject or not. And honestly, you can do both. But if you're an expert on the subject, you can definitely make an opinion-based listicle. So just as an example, I went through the entire college system and I got a doctorate, right? So I know a lot about the US college system because I went through the entire thing from the bottom all the way to the top. And so I'm a bit of an expert on the college system, right? And so I'm able to make a video like the most useless degrees, and I have authority on the topic because I got a doctorate. Then on the right, you got the hardest majors in college. Again, I took a pretty hard major myself, so I'm a bit of an authority on the topic. And by that time, I'd already established myself as an authority in the niche as well. So I was able to make that video, and people automatically knew that I had authority on the subject because I'd been making videos on it for a couple years. Then fact-based listicles, on the other hand, are a bit different because these are better if you're not an authority on the topic, right? You leverage other authorities, like a government database or data that is available online from a big company such as Glassdoor. If you want the best of both worlds, just create a hybrid listicle, right? So most of my best performing videos are actually hybrid listicles. So I do present a lot of data and facts and things that you can verify and look up online, but at the same time, I give my opinion on the topic as well, right? So the top 5 college degrees that are actually worth it, I provide a lot of data and facts in that video, right? Numbers that you can look up on government websites like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Same with the middle one, 13 best remote jobs with no experience needed. And same with the one on the right, 17 work from home job companies always hiring worldwide. I present facts and data and statistics, but at the same time, I am giving my opinion on the subject as well. And I think this is the best of both worlds. And whether you are going to be data or fact-based, or just opinion-based, if you do both, you are gonna satisfy both audiences. Audiences that want data and facts, and audiences that just want your opinion as someone who is good at the topic or someone who has researched the topic. So how do you actually format the script? Well, let's talk about the basic structure of a script. Now, the first thing I wanna have on a script is a title. And by the way, sometimes I will initially have a title, but then later on change the title. And then I also want to have a purpose for the video, right? What is the actual purpose of making this video? And what I mean by purpose is what action do you want the viewer to take after watching your video? So just as an example, the purpose might be that you want them to take an action of downloading a free resource that will help them to further get the results that they're watching the video for in the first place. So in the case of this video, I actually have a free resource down in the description and the pinned comment below that will have a bunch of different examples of successful scripts that we've made and supplementary resources that will help you to make your own successful scripts. So definitely click that down in the description and the pinned comment below to check it out. So every video that you make should have a title and a purpose. And that's something I put at the very top of the script. And then the next thing that I always have is an inspiration video. Now, the inspiration video can be from your own channel, or it could be from somebody else's channel. But this inspiration video should be a guide to the scriptwriter and the video editor, as well as the thumbnail designer, on what type of video you're trying to make. Now, this just helps everybody to be on the same page. You might also put some notes under here, just describing kind of what you want with the video editing style, what parts of the inspiration video you like the most, etc. But it basically just keeps everyone on the same page and it makes everything a lot easier. So I have an inspiration video for just about every video that I ever make. So just as an example here, the inspiration video is a video that did extremely well a few months ago. We got millions of views in just a few months with this one. And it was 9 boring but high-paying remote jobs always hiring in 2025. And you can see I kind of have this sad face and I'm not looking at the camera. And then I made a second video that's quite similar. And this is 9 boring but guaranteed remote jobs, no interview 2025. Not exactly the same, but pretty similar. And then also I have this kind of like sad boy look on my face where I'm looking down and I'm not looking at the camera. And I have the same exact words on the thumbnail, boring remote work, and I have a number amount as well. And you'll see that even the way that I edit these different videos is quite similar if you were to go and click on them. So I almost always have an inspiration video at the top of the script writing document as well. Now the next thing that I write is the intro, and usually I will actually write this separately from the script itself. And the intro will determine if people continue watching your video. This is one of the most important parts of writing a script, and you need to have a great intro and hook. Now, this particular video I use as an example because the intro wasn't very good. And you can see that right away in the intro, it's lower than the typical video. The typical video intro and average view duration is the gray shaded part. And then this video is the blue line that's under that. And you can see that the blue line is pretty consistent with a normal video. The only thing that was wrong with it was the intro itself. So if I had a better intro in this video, it likely would have performed really well. And the sad thing is the intro is one of the most important things. You could have a phenomenal video, but if your intro sucks, people are gonna click off. That's gonna send a signal to the algorithm that the video sucks, and then nobody's gonna end up seeing it, right? So you need to make sure that you have a great intro and hook. Now I go into deep detail on exactly how to write the intro with what I like to call the holy trifecta. Because in my opinion, when you write the intro, you should make the thumbnail, the intro, and the title at the same time. These are the 3 parts of the holy trifecta. And the reason why I like to write them at the same time is because you need to make sure that they are all congruent with each other. There's a certain vibe or aura that the thumbnail, title, and intro are going to have. And the person is gonna see the thumbnail first, then they're gonna read the title, and then if they choose to click on the video, they're gonna watch the intro. And you wanna make sure that all 3 of these things are congruent with each other. And the hook is the most important part of the intro because you want to hook people with the very first line. You wanna get them interested, you wanna get them intrigued by the video. And we have extensive training on exactly how to do intros and hooks, and that is in the holy trifecta section. With that being said, usually if I'm in a hurry, what I'll do when it comes to the intros is I will have my favorite AI, which right at the moment is Claude, write 5 to 10 intros for a video. Or I'll have my scriptwriters do this, and then I choose which intro I like when I'm recording the video. And sometimes I will model this intro based off of the inspiration video. All right, next is keyword or keywords. And this is the main keyword or keywords that I'm trying to rank for with the video. And because of the fact that I'm trying to rank for this, it's oftentimes going to be in the title, in the intro, and in the description. So this is a key part of YouTube SEO, is to put your main keyword in the title, preferably close to the beginning of the title, in the description, preferably close to the top of the description, and then repeat it a few other times in the description as well, and in the intro itself, so within the first minute of the video, and usually repeated a couple times too. And again, I found that if you just have the keyword at the top of the script, it's gonna be easier for everyone to be on the same page and remember to include the keyword in those areas. And of course, you've got the body, right? So after the intro, you're gonna go into the body of the script. And for this part, I'm gonna go over my 30-minute YouTube script formula. And this is how you can make really good YouTube scripts in 30 minutes or even less sometimes. And this is a simple 3-step formula where we only focus on the most important aspects of making scripts. And an overview of this is first, you outline the major parts, right? So you're gonna list key items for the script. Then you're gonna identify main points for each item. And then you're gonna fill in all the important details with things like anecdotes and additional content. Right, so this is basically just a way to remind yourself to tell stories, give anecdotes, and important things like that. And this is kind of what it looks like on a zoomed out level. You're gonna start with the outline. Google Docs actually makes it quite easy to do outlines. It even has the outline in a tab on the left. Then after you've written the outline, you move on to developing the content skeleton. This is where you write in some of the major points that you want to hit on. And then finally, you fill in the details with some of the really important things that are going to enrich the content. So this could be things like screenshots from Glassdoor. So that's showing the proof. So this would be kind of like the fact-based part of the listicle, but also filling in details like stories, anecdotes, and things that really enrich the content. Now you can see the examples on the screen, but we're gonna go through an exact example, literally step-by-step on the screen live later on. So for the purposes of this video, so it doesn't take too long, we're gonna move on to the next step, which is integrating AI. And this is gonna make your life significantly easier. Now, when it comes to AI integration, right now, the king AI is Claude. Claude is the best AI by a mile when it comes to writing content. However, I'm making this video in such a way where you can use the templates and the prompts with any AI out there, right? So if a week from now, some other AI ends up being better than Claude, you can use the same exact prompts and templates that I'm gonna be talking about in this video and that I include in the description and the pinned comment below on that different AI. But right now, Claude is the best by a mile. There are a few exceptions, and I'm gonna talk about them very quickly. If you are making new style content, I have found that Grok is really good as well. And it's simply because it has a massive unfair advantage because Grok is connected to X or Twitter. And whenever some type of news comes out, thousands and thousands of people talk about it immediately on X and Twitter, and Grok is directly connected to that live real-time content. So Grok can be exceptionally good if you are making new style content, or if you're making any type of content where you need real-time news or up-to-date data. With that being said, when it comes to the actual writing portion of the content, Claude is the king and it's not even close. Claude is the best by a mile. Now, many users expect to input one prompt and receive a polished, ready-to-use script. And you can do that. You can input one prompt and you'll receive a decent script. But the key to unlocking Claude's full potential is engaging a series of targeted prompts, each refining and building upon the previous output. And I'm basically going to show you both examples in this video. So to get started, set up projects in Claude. And this can be accessed in the sidebar. Now, Claude does have a free version. I believe in order to use projects, you do have to use the paid version of Claude. I think it's about $20 a month. Then you want to give the project a name. And this will become your knowledge base in creating scripts. Now, once you've created the project, you can upload knowledge base files from your drive, or you can paste them via text into the add content section. And the great thing about this is that once you've created the projects, you can just reuse and or shift between each of them, depending on what you're working on. And we'll get into exactly what we like to upload into projects. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what's known as CGP, or Context Goal Prompt. So whenever you're writing a prompt, especially when you want to get a really good output from the prompt, aka writing a script, you want to format your prompt in such a way where you put the context first, then you tell it what the goal of the prompt is, and then the prompt itself. And the prompt itself would be exactly what you want it to do, right? So it's basically a command. So here's an example of context. I'm a YouTube scriptwriter within the niche of finance, specializing in personal finance education for millennials. I'm working on a script for a video titled 5 Unconventional Ways to Boost Your Credit Score in 2025. My content style is informative yet casual, often incorporating pop culture references to make complex topics more accessible, relatable, and understandable. Right? So that is context. You are giving it the context of the situation. You're telling it who you are, right? You're a YouTube scriptwriter, you're within the niche of finance, and you specialize in personal finance content for millennials. And you tell it what you're working on, right? You're working on a script for a video titled 5 Unconventional Ways to Boost Your Credit Score in 2025. And then you tell it about your content style and what you typically do with your content. And by the way, providing context is crucial for getting accurate and relevant responses from Claude. You have to identify your role, be specific in your niche or topic area, and state the exact video title and subject of what you're working on. Next is going to be your goal. And this is the part where you state your objective for the video. You want to be specific with what you want. For instance, do you want to educate, entertain? Do you want to solve a problem? Then you can mention the target metrics like retention, and you can describe the tone and the voice that you want to achieve. So do you want to be professional, humorous, conversational, etc.? And you can reference a specific creator that you like. And usually this creator is going to be very well known and popular. So here's an example of me doing this. My primary goal is to write a full-length video script that demystifies credit score improvement, presenting unconventional yet effective strategies. And I need the script to be written in a way that encourages audience retention through curiosity hooks, open loops, anecdotes, and any other methods to keep the audience watching. Now, the script should maintain a balance between being informative and entertaining, similar to the style of Graham Stephan, but with my own unique twist. Right, so this is where you basically tell it what your goal is, like what you are trying to achieve. Then you move on to the actual prompt, and this is where you give it a command, right? You tell it what you want it to do. So you'd use action verbs to direct Claude, like write, create, or generate. And this is where you can reference a project, like a transcript of a video that you want to emulate. So here's an example. Please create a new and unique script for my video, 5 Unconventional Ways to Boost Your Credit Score in 2025. Which is over 10 minutes long and provides deep value. Additionally, please take the sample in the project knowledge titled How I Bought a Tesla for $78 per month from Graham Stephan and use that as a template for the tone and feel of the script. Now, additionally, you could use your own scripts as a template. This is what we almost always do in our team. However, I'm assuming that you don't have a bunch of scripts and a bunch of templates that you're really happy with, and so you can use a script or template from someone else. Now, generally speaking, you would want to use a template from a video that has the same format as your video. So in this example, I am making a listicle video, 5 Unconventional Ways to Boost Your Credit Score in 2025. Now, the video example that I used is actually more of a how-to video, but the way he constructs it in the video itself, it comes across in listicle style. So typically I would find another listicle. However, in this particular case, he basically constructed it in listicle style. He did it kind of step by step like lists. And so it's fine to do it that way in this particular case. So here's all 3 of those things put together. And if you already have a list, right, if you already have an outline, then you can customize the prompt however you want, right? For example, if you already have a list of items that you've researched and you want to cover in the script, you can make changes to the prompt section and add that in. So you don't have to do this, but if you want to customize it more to your specific knowledge, aka if you're already an expert on the subject, then I do highly recommend doing this. Additionally, you can do a mixture of both where you include some of your own items, but then you prompt it that it can add in other items as it sees fit, right? So you could have 5 of your own list and then 5 more that it can add in itself. Next, you can also tell it to create an outline. So instead of creating the script right away, you can tell it first to create an outline. Now, I personally like to do this just because I think that the final product is better if you create an outline first. And this would be a prompt for that. So please create the best possible outline for my video, 5 Unconventional Ways to Boost Your Credit Score in 2025, which is over 10 minutes long and provides deep value. Additionally, please take the sample in the project knowledge titled How I Bought a Tesla for $78 per month from Graham Stephan and use that as a template for the tone and feel. Now, one thing that I should quickly mention here is do not plagiarize other people's work. You can use it as inspiration or use it as a template, but don't tell it to copy someone else's work, obviously. Now, when you use the YouTube script formula and the CGP framework together, magic can happen. Okay, so this is a very, very important slide, so make sure that you pay attention. So on the left side, we have the project knowledge part, okay? And I'm not gonna show the exact project knowledge that I use for my first channel because my competitors could come on and literally just copy everything. However, I am gonna show you an example of the project knowledge that I would use for my second channel. So this is a B2B channel. This is a channel where the target audience is business owners and advanced YouTubers. So at this part, I would put in customer psychology. So this would be things like the customer avatar, right? What is the avatar of the people that I'm actually talking to, the type of people that I'm making content for? And I'll actually have an example of that pop up on the screen as I'm talking about it. And I'll also have examples down in the description in the pinned comment below that you can check out. Now, on top of the avatar, I might have things like demographics and psychographics. So demographics is generally speaking, who is your target content for? Is it for males? Is it for people from the United States? What is the age of your audience? Are they millennials, for instance? And sometimes what are their interests that are related to the topic that you're talking about? And what are their interests outside of the topic that you're talking about? So for instance, people that are interested in business are very likely also interested in making content, because that is a way of acquiring clients. But outside of that topic, they may also be interested in self-development, biohacking, nootropics, diets like the keto diet or the carnivore diet, etc., etc. And I go over exactly how to figure out what your audience demographics are and psychographics in other videos on the channel. Additionally, I put another one here that are books that I like, right? So these are books that I really enjoy and I reference in my content. Then I put another example here, getting leads from YouTube. So that would be specifically for the B2B audience. And this is instructions on exactly how you can structure B2B content in order to generate leads from YouTube. Then here is a guide on how to make great B2B content for YouTube. Then I've got proof, which is testimonials from my clients, along with descriptions from the testimonials, right? So there might be a video testimonial. I would put the transcript of the video testimonial and a description of where that person came from, what type of outcome they achieved, and any context that goes along with that person's situation. So was the person struggling with making content? Were they struggling with hiring people for YouTube, et cetera, that type of thing. And this allows the AI to read the person's situation and then use those testimonials and examples and integrate that into the content, right? So are you seeing how powerful this can be? Then you've got the Shane Hummus story and life timeline. And this literally tells my entire life story, and it allows the AI to tell anecdotes and stories from my life that go along with the content. And then I've got the Shane Hummus philosophy, which is basically my entire course, but it's kind of shrunken down a little bit, that gives my philosophy on YouTube specifically and how to get clients from YouTube. And then additionally, I have the YouTube monetization yap session. And this is where I basically just talk off the top of my head. So in this particular case, we're talking about YouTube monetization for this particular project. And I had a yap session where I basically just talked off the top of my head to one of my scriptwriters about what I want to include in the video, generally speaking. And then they can also ask me questions, and then I continue yapping about that. So it's really easy for me to do because I'm just yapping off the top of my head, and then they're asking me questions, and then I'm yapping a little bit more. And it's very conversational. And then they can use that yap session, they get a transcript from it. You can use Fathom, for instance, or there's a lot of other different types of AIs where you can get transcripts. And then you include that in the project knowledge, right? So you could probably see how unbelievably powerful this is. This allows you to make your content go from maybe like a 6 to an 8 out of 10 to, when you use the project knowledge, a straight up 10 out of 10. And by using this, you can see that, intro to credit scores, it makes an outline here where it shows, brief explanation of what credit scores are in 2025, a mention of recent changes to credit scoring models, share a quick personal anecdote about how your own credit journey started, set expectations, right? These methods might seem counterintuitive at first, but stick with me and I'll show you exactly how they work. And then the black part here is actually what Claude came up with. And the blue part is where you could actually go in and then insert your own anecdotes. And that's assuming that Claude didn't insert really good anecdotes, right? So if it didn't insert anecdotes that you like, then you can go in and insert your own anecdotes there, right? So the black part is explain the little known method of self-reporting income to alternative credit bureaus. The blue part would be insert personal anecdote. And then I think this is the best method of 2025. Then it goes back to Claude's part, step-by-step process for setting up accounts with alternative reporting services, identify suitable reporting services, self-rent reporting, evaluate select services, cost, registered for chosen service, verify payment history, monitor your credit reports. And keep in mind, this is just an example of what it would look like. Some people wouldn't want to insert that much. Some people would want Claude to do everything. And then others would just want to insert a little bit here and there. And then show real examples and screenshots of before and after credit reports. Show my screenshots, my credit report for 2024 and now in 2025. Right, so these are things that you can do that AI can't do, right? AI cannot take your credit report from last year and your credit report from this year and then insert screenshots. That's something that either you have to do or one of your scriptwriters. But that gives you an advantage because the things that AI can do, it does do, and the things that only you or your scriptwriter can do, you do. And those are things that most other people are not going to be doing. So that can set you apart. And then Claude also says down here, include a hook for method number 2, but if you're looking for an even faster way to boost your score, ... and on and on. And doing all of this will allow you to create hyper-targeted content that inserts personal anecdotes, your philosophy, and even testimonials from your clients into the content. Then you can use the filled out outline for the CGP prompt. And this is going to be massively helpful for generating the best possible scripts for Claude, right? So Claude on its own with zero extra context, just if you give it an example and you set up the project knowledge, can probably deliver like an 8 out of 10 script. But if you include these extra things like personal screenshots, stories from your life, etc., that is how you can get it to a 10 out of 10 level. And this is what my scriptwriters spend most of their time doing now. There's no reason for me to have my scriptwriters add stuff that Claude can do on its own. What they spend their time doing is coming up with screenshots and doing stuff that Claude or AI can't do. And so you should do the same, right? Everything that Claude can do, you should have it do, and things that it can't do, you should do on your own or have your scriptwriters do. For example, this video right here currently is the second most viewed video on my main channel, and it's pretty close to being number 1. And if you can view the video, you can see how good it is. The hooks, the engagements, it provides so much value for the target audience. And the truth is about 80% of this was written completely by Claude. The other 20%, the scriptwriter basically researched actual items, they put screenshots in, and they gave direction to the video editor. Then after putting it into Claude, a few edits and revisions here and there, the result was a banger video. So in this particular example, finally, you would want to combine everything into one prompt. Right, so we have the prompt using the CGP framework that we used before. We have the outline that Claude helped us to make, and then we attach that outline back into Claude, and it'll look something like this. And this will result in a really good script that covers exactly what you want to talk about. And in using this, you've drastically reduced your time in script writing, and you still have creative control over what specific topics that you want to talk about. So this allows you to maintain your authenticity and your honesty while still using AI to do the lion's share of the work. And again, towards the end, we're gonna do a live walkthrough of making a script. So I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this step by step. So if you're a little confused at this point, just bear with me. And also you can do it along with me at the end. So after you create your script, you also need to add in calls to action. And calls to action are where you direct the viewer to take a certain action. So an example of this, the most well-known one is hit the like button. And by the way, you should definitely be doing these during a video. And you should be doing multiple of them because they will significantly increase the amount of engagement that you get on your video. So for instance, I usually say this one exactly, hit the like button at the very beginning of the video, and I usually integrate it into my intro. And the reason I do this is because it's a minimum viable action that they can take in every single video. Think about it. They can't subscribe to your channel in every video, right? They can only really subscribe to your channel once. They also can't buy your product multiple times. Typically, they're only gonna buy your product one time. Now, they could technically share every single one of your videos, but chances are they're not gonna do that because it's too much work. However, they can hit the like button in every single video that they see every single time. And any psychologist will tell you that the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. So if they hit the like button, that means they engaged with your video. They are no longer a passive viewer. It is a two-way conversation where they are actually engaging with your video. And you want to encourage this as much as possible because if they continuously engage with your video, aka hit the like button on your videos, then they're gonna be more likely to do everything else that you want them to do. They're gonna be more likely to click the links in your description. They're gonna be more likely to share your video. They're gonna be more likely to subscribe to your channel when you ask them to. And they're gonna be more likely to leave comments on your video. And this also makes people like you thanks to what's known as the Ben Franklin effect, which is a psychological principle in which people like someone more after doing a favor for them. So when someone hits the like button on your video, they're more likely to like you, and they're more likely to do other things that you ask them to do in the future as well. So some YouTube experts out there will tell you, it's a waste of time to ask people to like your video. It doesn't actually make that much difference in the algorithm, and instead you should ask them to do X, Y, Z. And usually these YouTube experts don't have 1 million subscribers on their channel, and they haven't built several 7-figure businesses from their channel as well. So they're basically just parroting other things that they hear. When in reality, hitting the like button is one of the absolute best calls to action because of the fact that it's a repeatable, minimum viable action that they can do on every single video that will lead them to doing the other actions that you want them to do as well. And this is why almost all of the biggest YouTubers and the most successful YouTubers in the world ask people, or really tell people, to hit the like button in every single video. Now, another really good call to action is telling them to comment below. Now, this is one that I really like to do, especially in certain types of videos, because it gets people to engage in your comment section, it gets people to read the comment section, which increases the average view duration of the video, and it adds social proof to your videos. When people see other people commenting on your videos, they're more likely to watch and comment themselves. And additionally, this is especially effective if your video is a little bit controversial, because a lot of the time people will basically start kind of arguing with each other or debating with each other in the comment section. And this almost turns your video into like a mini forum where people will actually come back to your video over and over again to comment or debate in the comment section again and again. And this will of course send a signal to the YouTube algorithm that your video is really good because people keep on coming back over and over again. So the call to action to comment below can be very powerful, especially in controversial videos. And by the way, comment below what your favorite call to action is, and maybe it'll spark a debate. See what I did there? Another really powerful call to action is to tell people to share the video. Now, the algorithm absolutely loves this because if you think about this from YouTube's perspective, they want as many people on YouTube watching YouTube as humanly possible. So when people that are currently watching YouTube share the video with somebody else who is not currently watching YouTube, and then that person starts watching YouTube, the algorithm absolutely loves this. They didn't even have to waste an impression like showing the thumbnail to somebody who's already on YouTube. Your video is essentially getting people who are not currently watching YouTube to watch YouTube. So from an algorithm perspective, sharing the video might be the single most powerful thing that you can have people do. Now, the algorithm loves this, but it's also difficult to do, right? Most people are not gonna wanna share the video because that requires them to actually go off of the platform, maybe go onto some type of messaging platform and sharing it with someone else. But with that being said, if you can think of a person out there who could benefit from this video, maybe a business owner or a YouTuber who you wanna know their opinion on the video, then go ahead and share this video with them. All right, so that would be an example of me doing a call to action to do this. Now, by the way, one thing you might notice is when I do the calls to action, I usually don't ask people to do it, I tell them to do it. And I found that when you tell people to do something, subconsciously, they are way more likely to do it. So that's another pro tip is when you are doing a call to action, tell people to do it. Tell them to hit the like button, tell them to share the video, tell them to click the link in the description in the pinned comment below, tell them to comment, and tell them to subscribe. Now, another good one is to tell them to subscribe and ring the notification bell. Now, I think this one is really powerful when you first start your channel. And the reason for that is because when you first start your channel, what you have going against you is what's known as social proof. So when someone clicks on your video and they see that you only have a few hundred subscribers, they are very likely to just click off of your video because of social proof, or the lack of social proof. However, if they click on your video and they see that you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, they're much more likely to give you a chance and actually watch your video because they see that hundreds of thousands of other people watched your content and they thought it was good enough to subscribe. And so for people that are just starting on YouTube, I do love this call to action, telling people to subscribe. Now, you'll probably notice that on my main channel, I very rarely do this. And the reason for that is because I already have 1 million subscribers. I don't care if people subscribe. In fact, I honestly could not care less. I got to 1 million subscribers, and unless I want to try to go for 10 million, I truly do not care if more people subscribe to my channel or not. So this is currently my least favorite call to action, but it's still recommended to newbies to get their first 1,000 subscribers. Now, after you have your first 1 to 10,000 subscribers or so, I don't think it matters nearly as much. But with this call to action, I'm usually gonna put it 5+ minutes into the video, as I only want people with good, long attention spans to subscribe to my channel. because those are the types of people that I want to be watching my content. So if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell below, right? That's an example of me doing a call to action. Now, another really good call to action is to tell people to watch another video. Now, there's two different ways you can do this. If you tell somebody to watch another video during your video, not at the end, it's going to be called a card or an info card. And this will pop up at the top right of your video. Now, in my opinion, this isn't as good because you're going to get people to stop watching your main video when you do this. However, if it really makes sense, for instance, if you're referencing another video where you dive deeper on the subject, this can make sense. However, the most powerful one by far is to tell people to watch another video at the very end. And you should be doing this in every single video that you do every single time, because this is going to get people to binge your videos. And this is an amazing call to action and should be done at least once in every single video at the end, without failure. So you should direct them to another video that they're likely to enjoy, either one that has performed well or one that you're proud of because you put a lot of work into it, or one that has to do with the subject of the video that they're currently watching. So let's just say that I made a video about how to make titles for your YouTube videos. Then at the very end, I might say something like, titles are extremely important, but if your thumbnail isn't good, people are never even going to look at your titles. So if you want to know how to make really good thumbnails, then click right here. Right? I might say something like that at the very end of a video. Now, one important note on this is, especially when it comes to your end screens, I recommend that you give zero warning, right? Don't give any warning that it's the end of the video. Just go straight from the last point of the video to a segue that gives context to why they should click on the next video. And don't give them any warning or any hint that it's the end of the video. So one thing that I see people doing all the time, this is a massive mistake, is they'll say something along the lines of, well, that's my list, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. And the moment they say that, people are going to be clicking off the video immediately, right? So do not give them any warning that the video is over. So as an example, I was talking about remote jobs that they can apply for in this video, and then I lead them to watch another video that I was also talking about remote jobs that they can apply to. And I don't give any segue or any warning that the video is over. Comment below. Plus, check out this other video of remote jobs that you can apply to that are really good. This video absolutely blew up. People loved it, and you can check it out by clicking right here. And then additionally, you'll notice that there's an end screen where there is arrows pointing towards that video telling them to watch it. So yeah, super, super powerful call to action. You need to be doing this in every single video, every single time. And then finally, the ultimate call to action, because this is how you actually make money on YouTube, is to click the link in the description and the pinned comment below. Now, this makes a huge difference in the amount of people that click on your links. You might think that you can just, put a link in the description and lots of people are going to click it. But the truth is, if you don't tell them to click the link in the description and the pinned comment below, chances are they are not going to click it. And just by simply telling people to click it, you will increase the amount of people that click it by 5x. This makes a massive difference. You absolutely have to be telling people to do this in every single video, because clicking your links means more money for you. And if you're afraid to sell people on stuff directly in your video, that's totally fine. You can have what's known as a lead magnet, where you give them something very valuable in the description in exchange for their email. And then you can give them more value via email, and then later on sell them something via email. But you absolutely need to be collecting emails or telling them to get off of YouTube at some point. Now, it's very important that you don't do this at the very beginning of your video. The earliest that I would ever recommend to do this is 3 minutes into the video. Typically in a normal video that's, let's say, 15 minutes long, you would do it around 5 to 7 minutes in. Now, additionally, because of the fact that more people are now watching YouTube on TV screens than on their computers or even their phones, I highly recommend also leaving a QR code on the screen. This way people can scan that QR code with their phone and it'll take them to the exact same link that they would go to if they were to click the link in the description and the pinned comment. And notice that I don't just tell people to click the link in the description, I also tell them to click the link in the pinned comment below as well. This gives them more options for what they can click. And more people are likely to see it if it's in the pinned comment. Now, the thing about putting something in the pinned comment is when the video launches, you do have to have somebody that's there live to post and then pin the comment. So that's the one downside of doing that, is you either have to do it yourself or you have to have somebody on your team do it for you when the video launches. Now, additionally, we've done lots of different split tests on this. And if you have one link in your description or one link that's at the top of your description, that is going to significantly increase the click-through rate overall. So you'll notice that we oftentimes have multiple links in our description on the main channel. And that's because we've been doing this for years and we have a lot of social proof. But generally speaking, I highly recommend just having one main link that you want to drive people to, because this is going to significantly increase the amount of people that click on that link. So typically on my second channel, I usually only have one link in the description, or at least one link at the top of the description. And the link that you put at the top of the description is actually extremely important because it's what's known as above the fold, AKA they don't have to click more in the description to see the link. So by following these rules, you are going to get a significantly higher amount of people to click the link in the description, which means you are going to make significantly more money. We're talking sometimes like 5 times more money than if you just had it in the description, but you didn't have a call to action. Hey guys, quick break. I'm in the process of editing this video right now, and I realized that a lot of you are probably thinking, Shane, if I make people go to a link, where am I actually going to send them to? I don't have a website or a landing page or anything like that. Well, the crazy thing is you can make a landing page exactly like this in about 10 minutes with High Level. High Level has all these templates built in. You just pick one, swap out the text, add your own images, and you've got a professional landing page that converts. And it's not just landing pages, you get the whole damn system. Email marketing, SMS, automation, payment processing, all the stuff you need to actually run a business for just $97 a month. And if you use my link in the description and the pinned comment below, you can try it out completely free to start. Seriously, we've been using High Level lately, and before we used High Level, I had to spend well over $1,000 a month on all the different softwares, like the landing page builder, the email marketing software, the call scheduling software, webinar softwares, etc., etc. And Go High Level has it all in one. Plus, their customer service is amazing. So if you're a beginner, I absolutely recommend High Level because you don't have to deal with complicated tech stuff, and it's super easy to use. And I even know people making over $1 million a month that are using High Level. Plus, I've got an exclusive link down the description in the pinned comment below, which will give you a free trial so you can mess around with it without spending a dime. So if you want to try it out, there's a link in the description in the pinned comment below. And you can use this to collect emails, you can use it to sell stuff directly on a landing page, or you can use it to get people onto a live webinar or a live workshop with you. So just wanted to mention that because it is absolutely crucial that you are doing calls to action and you're at the very least collecting people's emails. Now, let's talk about call to action recommendations because as you saw, there's a lot of different calls to action. My 3 favorites are hit the like button because it's easy to do. It's a repeatable thing that they can do over and over again. Watch another video because you should do this at the end of every single video, every single time, and click the link in the description below. These are the ones that you should always have in every single video, every single time. However, sometimes you might want to include some of the other ones. And if you are still starting on YouTube, I highly recommend telling people to subscribe as well. Because again, if you have more people subscribe to you, that's going to increase your social proof, and therefore people are going to be more likely to watch your videos. And if it makes sense contextually with the type of video that you're making, you should be telling them to comment below or share the video as well. So you'll see on my main channel that sometimes I will tell people to comment and share the video too. And this is especially true if there's a good reason for them to comment or share the video. So we'll have some good reasons pop up on the screen right now. And like I said, it's especially effective for people to comment on the video if it's a little bit of a controversial topic. Now that we know how to actually create a script, how can we make the script more valuable? Well, one thing you can do is add real data that supports your topic. So let's talk about researching for script content. Now, this is not researching video ideas. This is research to help you write scripts and provide valuable content to your audience. Now, the places that you'll do research about your topics will be different depending on your niche. But here are the sources that you want to look into to find really good places to research. First of all, subreddits and articles. I found that you can find really good information on various different subreddits across the internet. And the reason for this is because a lot of people who are experts on the subject or they're fanatics about the subject gather in these different subreddits. And they can share really good anecdotes or pearls of wisdom or best practices, or other places that are really good for doing research on the subreddits. And then additionally, you might find really good articles in certain places. Just as an example, I found that CNBC Make It is a really good place for researching stuff about personal finance. And you might also find really good authors on Medium. So like I said, this is gonna be different for every single niche out there, and you have to find the good subreddits for your niche. Now, the next one is pretty obvious, books, right? So there's various different books on the subject, books that are related to your niche, and you can use these books for researching various different topics. So here's some books that I really like. Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson, The One Thing, and Deep Work by Cal Newport. Now, additionally, you can find really good content on social media. There are different communities within Twitter or X where you might find really good content on various different niches. Additionally, you might have paid or unpaid newsletters that offer cutting edge knowledge and really good perspectives. Substack is a place where you can find paid newsletters, and you can also find really good unpaid newsletters from experts on a place like X or LinkedIn. Additionally, you can find really good information on YouTube, of course, although it's not recommended to copy your competitors, because you want to bring new value to the table. You don't want to be a cheap ripoff of your competitors. Another really good place you can find great information is forums. So just as an example, Student Doctor Network is a forum that I probably spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on when I was a pharmacy student and when I was going to pharmacy school. And I found invaluable information on Student Doctor Network. So if I was making content on that particular subject, I would absolutely use Student Doctor Network. And you can do the same thing for your niche. Find forums that are really good, provide really high quality information, and use that for doing research on your topics. And then additionally, you can use AI. So one of my favorite AIs obviously is Claude for actually writing, but you can also use Claude for researching the topic. You can ask it for recommendations on books, recommendations on really good blogs or really good articles or good newsletters, etc., etc. Additionally, Grok is really good, especially if it's news-based content. So if you're trying to find the most up-to-date information on a particular topic, Grok can be a really good example. And then ChatGPT Pro, in my opinion, is the absolute best on doing deep research on a topic. Now, ChatGPT Pro is very expensive. Right now, it's about $200. But a week from now, there might be another AI that comes out that's even better than ChatGPT Pro. So you kind of just have to figure out which AI does the best job when it comes to deep research and then use that AI. Claude is still pretty good, and if there was only one AI tool that I could use for the rest of my life, at least at this point, it would be Claude. Additionally, another really good place, especially for finding anecdotes or extremely niche information, is podcasts. So an example of a really good podcast is My First Million. I'm a big fan of this podcast. They basically bring people on and they interview them about how they made their first $1 million. And the crazy thing is there will be these massive fads that happen. And a lot of the time, the really niche podcasts will have already talked about the fad like a year or two before it gets really popular. So a lot of the time, these podcasts are cutting edge. And the same thing goes with forums and subreddits. Just as an example, Monk Mode and Dopamine Detox got really big on Reddit before it got big on YouTube. All right, so now let's talk about 7 pro tips for writing better YouTube scripts. And the first one is specificity. And basically what you want to do here is be more specific and deep with the topic that you've chosen, right? Get personal, do some research, connect with the audience, and avoid crappy BuzzFeed-like listicles. So just as an example, in my niche on my main channel, I help people get remote jobs. And oftentimes when it comes to finding the job listings, I will use Google Jobs. When it comes to finding exact data on how much that job makes, I like to use Glassdoor, because basically the way they aggregate that data is they have thousands and thousands of people report their income, and then they give the average of those income reports. So in my opinion, it's the most accurate data you can get on the internet. And then I might also look up how many job postings are available on LinkedIn, and this is a great way to tell how much demand there is for that particular job, right? So I like to get as specific as possible, and I like to find these different resources for getting as specific as possible with my information and my content. Additionally, add A-roll or B-roll to your content. And the crazy thing is you can actually write this into the script. So just as an example here, A-roll is when you're shown in the video. So that's the main camera that's looking directly at you. B-roll is when you're not being shown in the video, but viewers can still hear you. So this is where you might have a meme pop up or a clip from a movie or an animation or something like that. And alternating between these two can really help with retention. And this is something that scriptwriters can help with by putting references and information in the script. So scriptwriters can actually direct the video editor on what they want shown on the screen. And again, this is something that AI cannot do, and it's something that adds a massive amount of value to your video and to your audience. Next is minimizing repetition. So repeating things is not bad, just try to minimize it, right? Overdoing it is annoying on a YouTube video. And a good analogy for this is a pinch of salt enhances the flavor, but too much ruins the dish. And I guess this is the same for almost everything that I talk about in this video. Next is adding intentional flair. And flair is not a form of B-roll necessarily. It's basically just doing creative stuff, right? Doing things that people don't expect. Another way of thinking about this is as a pattern interrupt, right? So you want to do things that other people aren't doing in your niche. So an example of this could be creating sketches on a pad, including memes, including comedy, and basically just doing things that they don't often see in your niche. And what this does is it causes a dopamine hit. It causes people to continue watching your video, and it makes your content more memorable, right? So add a little bit of flair to your content. Again, right, just a pinch. You don't want to dump the whole salt bottle. But adding a little bit of flair to your content can really make you stand out. Next is intellectual property. So this especially applies to you if you're creating educational content. So you want to come up with things that are completely new, or if they aren't new, say them in a new way. So this is basically where you bring completely new value to YouTube and your videos. No one else in your niche has talked about this, or no one else has said it in the same way that you are saying it. So an example of doing this is basically talking about something that other people have talked about, but using an analogy for it. So an example of analogy is me talking about putting a little bit of salt on something instead of dumping the entire salt shaker, right? That's an example of an analogy. And you've probably heard people say that, you don't want to do too much of something, you just want to do just enough. But chances are you've never heard that analogy of putting just a little bit of salt on your meal, which enhances it, versus if you dump the entire salt shaker onto your meal, it would actually ruin it, right? That's an example of me bringing new value to the table and me bringing an analogy that you've probably never heard before. That's intellectual property. Then overall, you just want to make sure that you're getting a density of dopamine hits. Okay? You want to be insightful. You want to be surprising. You want to be entertaining a little bit. You want to make viewers feel excited about the new things coming up in your video. And pattern interrupts are a great way to do this. Another thing you can do is talk about the perceived investment in your video. And not just invest a lot of time, but actually let your audience know how much time you've invested. So how can you do this? Well, invest a good amount of time in researching about your topic, or at least make your audience think that you did. You could talk about how you read 50 books to learn the concepts that you're going to teach. You could show some level of difficulty in creating the video or the subject itself, and how this video will make that subject easy and save them time. So an example of number one, which is research effort, is I could say that I did 50 pages of research in order to make this video, or I spent 112 hours researching this video. An example of knowledge acquisition is saying something like, I spent 13 years of studying YouTube in order to tell you exactly what's important and what's not important in this video. Or I read 50 different books on investing, and I'm going to distill all that information into this video. And then third is complexity and simplification. You could say something like, I collected data on thousands of different YouTubers, and I crunched the numbers, and I did an entire study just to tell you what the best call to action is, which is true. I have done that. And then for all three of these, you can emphasize the simplification, right? You did all the hard work. You acquired all the knowledge, you went through all the hard stuff so that you could simplify it for them, right? So making sure that people know the perceived investment and the perceived work that you put into the video and how much time, effort, and money it's going to save them can be incredibly important. And that's something that you should emphasize throughout your video. Now, great information makes your video valuable, but what makes it memorable are stories. So here's how great storytelling helps your script. So storytelling is unbelievably powerful. And one of the main reasons is because our brains think in stories. And if you don't believe me, I'll just tell you right now, don't think about a purple elephant, okay? Whatever you do, do not think about a purple elephant. Well, chances are you are thinking about a purple elephant right now. Even though I told you not to think about it, you're thinking about one. Now, definitely do not think about a purple elephant balancing on a ball, okay? Do not think about that. Okay, so I think you get my point. You were definitely thinking about a purple elephant balancing on a ball, even though I told you not to. And our brain works the same way. You quite literally, if I were to tell you a story right now, especially if I gave you vivid details about it, you couldn't stop yourself from envisioning or creating a video of the story in your brain. And, if you think about when you were a little kid and your mom and your parents were trying to drive a point home, instead of telling you to not do something or telling you to do something, they would tell you a story, right? So it's kind of like the little boy who cried wolf, right? Our parents tell these stories to us because they want to illustrate a story, right? They want to illustrate a point in the form of a story. And because of that, we remember it. And that is the power of storytelling. And it's not just for kids, it's for grown-ups as well. Storytelling is an unbelievably powerful tool. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't do enough storytelling. Like, I should absolutely do more. Because every time you tell stories, first of all, you help people learn things, right? It helps significantly with driving in a point that you're trying to drive in, which gives them a significant amount of value because you could be telling them the right point, but if they don't remember it, then, what's the point, right? They're just going to forget it. But on top of that, whenever you tell a story, you're essentially gaining real estate in your viewers' brains. Okay? You're gaining emotional real estate in their brains. That's the best way that I can describe the power of storytelling. Conversations that I've had with friends from years ago, I've forgotten almost everything from the conversation. But there's really two things that I'll remember. One, the way that they made me feel, and two, any stories that they told. Right? So I've had friends in the past, for instance, where, we might have had a conversation, we talked for 3 hours, and I forget every single thing that we talked about except the stories that they told during the conversation and how those stories made me feel. So yeah, I could go on and on about the power of storytelling, but I think you get the point. What you want to do is if possible, you want to include vivid imagery, right? So if I was telling a story about a time in my life where I was quite sad, instead of just saying I was sad, I would say something along the lines of, well, first of all, I would actually remember a point in my life where I was sad. And I would say something along the lines of, I remember just walking down the sidewalk and everything just seemed almost pastel colored, like there was almost no color. It was almost just black and white with a tiny little bit of color here and there. And I just felt like this feeling of desperation, right? I just had nowhere to go. I felt like I'd hit rock bottom and I was just walking down the street and my life was pretty much over. And I was just stuck in this place on a street that I didn't want to be on, in a place that I didn't want to be, and I would never be able to get out, right? So that's kind of like vivid imagery. I talked about the street. I talked about how it was, like the colors were not very good in the street. There were a lot of potholes on the street, and it wasn't a very well kept street, and it was in a place that nobody wanted to be. Just vivid imagery, right? And then when it comes to the emotional connection, you just talk about how you felt at the time, right? Talk about the emotions that were going through your head and the struggles that you were having, and basically just things that they could relate to, right? Because so many people go through difficult times. And I think it's just a natural thing to think that you're just like the only person who's ever felt that emotion before. You're the only person who's ever had that problem before. When in reality, chances are 99% of the time, it's happened literally millions, maybe even billions of times before to other people. Other people have had the exact same thing happen to them. And so that's actually weirdly, it's kind of a good thing when you realize that other people feel the exact same struggles and have felt the exact same emotions as you, because it just makes you feel less alone, right? And it makes you feel more connected to that person, right? It makes you see them as a human being and not just some talking head on the internet. Okay, so talk about your emotions. Be a little bit open and transparent and just talk about things that maybe are a little bit embarrassing. And then also, storytelling is great for personal branding because you can basically paint a picture of yourself, paint a picture of what you're all about, what you stand for, what you believe in, and what you had to go through that makes you uniquely positioned to teach whatever you're teaching. And a lot of these things are going to be extremely relatable to people as well. So yeah, the power of storytelling, guys, I can't even emphasize, like, this is one thing, like I do a lot of it, but I should be doing a lot more. Like I really should try my best to do a lot more, and I don't do enough. Storytelling is how you turn like an abstract concept that's boring and probably unrelatable into reality, into something that people can easily remember and relate to, and they're going to learn the lesson. And when it comes to stories, you can tell stories about yourself, you can tell stories about people that you know in life, or you can tell stories about other people in the world, maybe people who are at the top of your industry, or people who did great things in the past, or people who had just fantastic events happen to them, whether they were good or bad. And honestly, like, telling your story is not only incredibly powerful, it's also your moat. It's the one thing that nobody can ever copy, and it establishes your brand, right? The fact that I was $300,000 in student loan debt, and I felt like I had a sword just dangling over my head at all times. I felt like I was carrying a 100-pound backpack at all times with all this debt. Right? I felt like I couldn't escape. I felt like I was just going to be stuck working a 9-to-5 job for the rest of my life just to be able to try to pay off all this debt. That is what sets me apart, right? That is the thing that makes me unique. That's something that nobody else can ever copy. They can't copy my story. They can't copy the fact that I was a pharmacist and I worked as a pharmacist during the pandemic. But they also can't copy the fact that I got a doctorate, right? So, you can talk about the things that were bad, right? But also talk about the things that were good. Just talk about yourself, like tell your story. Another thing that people can't copy is the fact that I played probably tens of thousands of hours of RuneScape when I was a kid and a teenager, right? So that's something that I talk about on my channel. And, for other people that played the video game RuneScape, that's something they really relate to because they probably played the game a lot as well. And, I actually learned a lot from RuneScape. It was one of those things where, a lot of people might think that it was a total waste of time. And, maybe even at one point, I might have thought that it was a total waste of time. But looking back on it, I realized that I learned so much about business from RuneScape by buying iron ore and buying it for 95 GP and then selling it for 110 GP, and then just doing that over and over again until I got rich from the game, just basically flipping iron and coal ore over and over again. That's how I learned business, right? That's one of the very first places that I ever learned business from. And that's a unique experience. It's something that nobody can ever copy. It's my moat, and it's your moat as well. So think back in your life. Think about all the things that you accomplished, all the bad things that happened to you, and talk about those things, right? Share those things with your audience because, I've had a couple people sign up for my program that are pharmacists, right? I've had a couple people sign up for my program that mentioned that they played RuneScape as well, and they just really related to that stuff. So this is the kind of thing that is just going to set you apart. It's your moat. Nobody else can ever copy it. Any other thing you do when it comes to marketing or your content, technically people could copy, right? If you think about it, just about anything else people could copy. But your story is the one thing that literally nobody can ever copy. It's your brand. It's the thing that sets you apart. So this is something that I wish I had done earlier in my YouTube career because it's honestly that important. And even to this day, I don't do it enough. And it's something that I need to focus on and do more because, I'm honestly a pretty private person and I don't really like talking too much about myself or my past. I like talking about things, right? I like talking about concepts and ideas and great people from history and other great people in my industry and how people can get results. And I like talking about my clients, but I don't really like talking about myself. Right? So it's something that I need to work on, and it's something that a lot of other people need to work on as well. The power of storytelling is undeniable. Now, let's talk about a basic storytelling structure. Because depending on what story you're trying to tell, you can use these structures for basic storytelling. The basic structure is someone's living a normal life or below normal life. A challenge arises, right? So a problem or a conflict disrupts the character's life. They overcome the challenge. The character faces and overcomes the challenge. Sometimes they'll overcome the challenge with the help of a mentor or with the help of some kind of thing that they do that help them overcome the challenge, right? They'll usually give credit to maybe some kind of idea that they had or maybe some type of software they're using or some type of maybe a supplement they were using or a mentor that they met or something like that. They usually give credit to something like this is the thing that helped me overcome the challenge. And then there's a successful resolution and the character achieves success and resolves the conflict. And then they have an improved life. Now, going back to the overcoming the challenge thing and having a mentor, this is a very common storytelling structure. And you'll notice that in almost all of the movies, the main character, after the challenge arises, they do meet a mentor, right? So with the Karate Kid, it's Mr. Miyagi. With Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, it's Yoda, et cetera, right? They meet some type of wise mentor who has all the answers. They know what the problem is and what the solution is, and the mentor helps them overcome it, okay? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It could be a thing. For instance, you could say that, I was really having a lot of trouble presenting on camera, but then I started using a one-way glass where I basically a one-way mirror where I basically just look in the mirror, but the camera looks straight at me. So I'm basically just looking at myself when I'm presenting, but the camera looks straight at me. And so it's easier for me to present and be charismatic because of that, right? So in that case, the mentor would be the one-way glass, right? So that's the basic storytelling structure. And you kind of try to remember that, right? You kind of try to like remember back to before you were having the problem and when you had the problem, how you were able to overcome the problem, and then what your life was like after you solved the problem, right? If you tell it like that, usually that's going to be a, an easy kind of way to remember how to tell a story. So an example of this is when I was young, I found YouTube while randomly browsing forums, and ever since that day, it completely changed my life. I absolutely loved it. But eventually, watching my favorite channels wasn't enough. I wanted to start my own channel. And so I started my first channel, which was about the video game RuneScape. But after uploading video after video, I didn't have any luck, and the channel simply wouldn't grow. And over the years, I started channel after channel, and all of them failed. And I was frustrated because it was my dream to be a successful YouTuber ever since I was a kid. So I looked back and I realized what all the failed channels had in common. The niche sucked, or it was good, but it was saturated. So I started looking for things that I was already good at that I could make videos about as a niche. AKA, I tried to solve problems for the younger version of myself. And I looked for niches that solved real problems for real people. And that's how my first successful channel was born. And ever since that channel, it completely changed my life. I've been able to travel the world. I was able to quit my job. I don't have to worry about debt anymore. And now I can live my dream life traveling the world, doing whatever I want. And I have financial, time, and location independence and freedom. Right? So that's kind of a story, right? It's a quick, that was kind of an obvious example, but it's a story of, how I started YouTube. YouTube was the mentor in this case, right? I didn't have like a human mentor. YouTube was the mentor. That was the thing that helped me to solve the problem. And yeah, that's an example of me telling a story about myself. Now, an example of me telling a story about a friend is a friend of mine went to college because that's what everyone else was doing, and they got a useless degree, which landed them in an entry-level job that they could have done without getting a degree in the first place. Right? So now they hated their job. It was entry level. They felt stuck. They were also, quite deep in student loan debt, but they used their frustration to work on their skills, build a portfolio to prove that they have the skills, and get certifications that help them land a lucrative job in digital marketing. And because of this job, they were able to increase their income. They were able to get a remote job so that they could save a bunch of money, not having to travel to work. Plus, they have a lot more options for the types of jobs they can get. And now they have a bright future ahead of them. So that's a story of a friend. You could tell something like that. Then a story of someone else. So I'll just do the example of Carl Icahn because he is the one that I kind of discovered the icon method from. And it goes like this. Carl Icahn was an average investor for a long time. He wasn't great, but he also wasn't bad. And he made decent money, but he was never going to reach his goals doing what everyone else was doing. So he came up with his own investing system. He looked at companies that were doing fairly well despite being run terribly. And one thing he would look at is whether an individual, or in some cases, an entire department served a purpose. And in many cases, they literally wouldn't do anything valuable the entire day. They would just email back and forth or, look at PowerPoints and accomplish nothing. And this would tell him that the company had a competitive advantage that was so large that it didn't even need to follow normal business principles. And he would then buy those companies, fix them, and then sell them and make a ton off of the investments. And this is one of the ways that he became well known in the finance world. Right, so this is a pretty cool story of Carl Icahn and how he was able to become so well known. And so these are the three types of stories you can tell. Stories about yourself, stories about other people that you know. It could be your friend, it could be a client, and stories about people. Usually it's kind of top people in your industry or very impressive people or people that had extreme things happen to them. Next is making your script anti-fragile. Now, where did I get this word anti-fragile from? Well, I got this from Nassim Taleb. And this is a very smart guy who wrote the book Anti-Fragile. And basically, making your script anti-fragile is extremely important. And an anti-fragile script is designed to withstand changes, edits, and unexpected circumstances without breaking the flow or quality of the final video. And unlike fragile scripts that fall apart when modified, anti-fragile scripts become stronger and more adaptable through flexibility. So an example of this, kind of an analogy, is there is this building in the country of Taiwan that basically has this giant ball. It's like a 660-ton pendulum that protects Taiwan's tallest building from earthquakes. And basically, there's a lot of buildings like this, and there's a lot of ways to be earthquake resistant, and this is one of the smartest ways I've seen. And you want to make your scripts like this as well, because chances are, especially if someone else makes your script for you, it's not going to be perfect, right? You're not going to see it and just be like, oh, this is the most perfect script in the world. Everything is absolutely perfect about it. There's likely going to be a few changes that need to be made. Even if you make your script yourself, a lot of the times, in the editing process, or even when it posts to YouTube, you'll be thinking to yourself, oh, I wish I would have done this, and I wish I would have done that, and it would have been better if I did this, et cetera, et cetera. So how can you make your script anti-fragile so that you actually catch these things on time, and then you can add them at the last moment, sometimes even when you're recording the video? Well, these are the 5 main ways to make your script anti-fragile. First of all, create more content than you need. This is one of the most clever methods, and it's one of the things that I remember I told one of my clients this, and because he was telling me he had a problem with his script writers, they would put stuff that he didn't like, and then, he just wouldn't like it, and, he'd get really mad at them, and, he was really frustrated. And I was like, why don't you just have your script writers put a few extra pieces in the script so that if 1 or 2 of them you don't like, you just have extra ones, and so you can just choose those other ones. And he was just like, oh, wow. Yeah, I could definitely do that. Right? So this is kind of like the extra method. So let's just say hypothetically you're creating a top 10 list. What you can do is you can research and write maybe 13 to 15 items, or you can have your scriptwriters research and write 13 to 15 items. And this gives the talent freedom to choose what resonates most with them, right? And the talent in this case would be you. So an example of this would be 9 boring but high paying remote jobs always hiring in 2025. And you can actually see that even though it's 9, there were 11 items on the script. Right? So there's an extra few items. So my team and I have this down to a science now because we've been doing these videos for so long. But before, I'd usually have them do an extra 3 to 5 items. So there's only an extra 2 this time. But if you're not extremely confident, have them do an extra 5. And you might be thinking, well, Shane, this is great if you're making listicle style content, but what if I'm making a how-to or a step-by-step guide? Well, that's another thing, is essentially everything is a listicle. So you want to make the pieces of your how-to video or your step-by-step guide in such a way where if you were to skip one, or if you were to substitute one, it wouldn't break the entire script. And we're going to get into exactly how to do that here in a minute. But this is extremely important to keep in mind, is first of all, everything is a listicle essentially. And second of all, you want to make the video and the script in such a way where if you were to take something out, or if you were to replace something, it wouldn't make that much of a difference. So create more content than you need. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I used to take this to an extreme where I would create extremely long scripts where I just talked about almost every possible thing that you could talk about when it comes to a job. And then during the video, I would just pick which ones I'm going to talk about, right? I would pick which pieces that I'm going to talk about and which pieces that I'm going to highlight. And you can do this as well. It's something where you can kind of just, especially if you're testing things out, it's better to have more information than less information. But of course, I stopped doing this when I figured out the things that actually mattered and the things that I thought were really important. And I started having my scriptwriters just put that stuff. But yeah, the big point here is create more content than you need. This is the #1 secret to making your content anti-fragile. Now, the next secret is use modular structure. Make your content in such a way where it basically fits together like a Lego block. And you can take the red Lego block and put it all the way down under the yellow Lego block, right? You can put it together in any way that you want. It doesn't really matter what order you put it in, right? So each section should be self-contained, but connected to the overall theme. And if one section is removed or replaced or moved around, the remaining content still flows naturally. For example, if I put this section about making the script anti-fragile before the storytelling subtopic, it would still make sense. Now, another thing is to avoid rigid numbering. So try not to number your sections in a way that creates obvious gaps if something is skipped. Use flexible transitions instead of sequence-dependent language. So a bad example of this would be, as we saw in point number 3, right? And that creates a problem if point number 3 is cut out. And try to create flexible transitions. So write transitions that can work between any 2 sections. Avoid transitions that reference specific previous points, and use bridge phrases that can connect any content pieces. Now, additionally, let's say you are very picky about your introductions. One thing that we'll do on our channel, this is something I recommend to my clients as well, is instead of having your scriptwriters write just one introduction and then you don't like it half the time, right? Like 50% of the time you're like, I don't like this introduction. Instead, just have them write 3 to 5 different introductions and then just choose which one you like the most. right? So you can just read the introductions, and while you're filming the video, you can just read which one you like the most, and then just like, you know what, number 3 and number 5 are both really good, so, you know, look at them again. You know what, I think I'm gonna do number 5, okay? Then you just read that introduction. Now, another few things to note about creating multiple intros is it allows you to test out different approaches. It creates flexibility for different platforms, and you can make direct, straightforward intros, story-based and anecdotal intros, and question or curiosity-based intros. And then you can just choose later on down the line which one you like the best. So sometimes you might actually record all 3, and then your team or you can choose which one you like the best. And another really amazing thing you can do, not enough people take advantage of this, is giving instructions during recording. So basically, if something happens during recording, let's say, you know, I made these slides and I didn't like the slide, for like something about the slide I didn't like, I could tell the video editor, hey, cut out the live example at this point and put something else, like put the sentence, you can change the slide to make it anything you want in post-production, okay? So I'm basically telling the editor to do that right now, right? So cut out the live example and put the sentence that I just said, right? And you can give that instruction to the editor, and they could either just edit the slide and then put that into the video, or they can just make the edit directly on the video itself. So all the time, if, you know, I have a PowerPoint slide or I have a script and I realize there's something else that could be done even better, there are many, many times where I will just talk out loud and I'll give instructions during the recording. Sometimes I might even, you know, say, oops. Yeah, keep that part in. Sometimes I might even, you know, record something. So I might like record the screen in front of me. And, you know, if I think that that would add value to the video, or sometimes I might tell them to put, you know, some type of B-roll from a different video that I've talked about into the video, or I might even tell them to put a cutscene from a different video that I talked about into the video, right? So I might tell them to put B-roll from one of my best videos on the channel, like the most useless degrees, and then they might do that, you know, as I'm talking, or I might tell them to put a cutscene from one of the best videos on my channel, like the most useless degrees, just put a really quick cutscene of that video. Maybe the intro from it, for instance.
What's happening, guys? It's Shane here. So I posted the video the other day on how you can choose the best college degree for you.
And they can do that. They can put it right into the video. And I'm basically just giving instructions for them to do it. And then another thing is, even if you're done recording, if you think of something, sometimes you can go back, re-record that part, add something to the part, cut something out, right? Nothing's stopping you from doing that. And especially if you make your content anti-fragile so that if you do take a part out, it still works and it doesn't make the whole video collapse, then that's totally fine, right? So these are all ways of making your script writing process anti-fragile so that even if something happens, something goes wrong, which invariably something will go wrong, you can rescue it, right? Another thing I do, and I guess this isn't script writing technically to make my content anti-fragile, is I have 2 different audio sources. I have an audio source here and an audio source there. And so if one doesn't work, then chances are the other works, okay? So I you know, it's a great book, Anti-Fragile. I try to, you know, apply it in many different areas of my life. And yeah, this is one of them, script writing and recording. And that is basically how you write a full script, guys. But what if I don't have time to do it myself, okay? Well, you're in luck because I have methods that will give you freedom from writing your own scripts. Let's talk about some advanced script writing methods. Now, this is typically going to be for business owners, or it's going to be for people who really want to take YouTube seriously, right? So you'll likely want to hire people to fill this position because it can be time consuming and your mind is of better use doing other more important things, okay? So this is not an easy position to hire for, but I figured out a system that makes this simple. So basically you have 2 different options, okay? Option 1 is to hire a good copywriter that's also a subject matter expert. And this is what Iman Gadzhi did, for instance. So he basically hired a world-class copywriter who's also a subject matter expert on the type of content that he makes. And this is the guy who writes his scripts. I think he even has like several guys writing his scripts like this, okay? This is very difficult to find. You're probably gonna have to pay this person hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, at least like 6 figures a year, because if they were just as good as you are at the subject and they can also write really well, why wouldn't they just make their own content, right? You know what I mean? Like it would make a lot more sense for them to do that. But you can find people like this if you get really lucky. With that being said, I don't like to rely on luck. I like to be anti-fragile. And so let's talk about the pros of this one really quick. You'll probably make the best content with this method. The cons are everything else, right? You'll have to pay the copywriter $100,000 a year, requires more quality control. You have to read it word for word. It's also very difficult to find scriptwriters with the correct skill set and experience. This method might be better if you have like a mini documentary style channel like Jake Tran, James Janney, or Horses. However, generally, I don't recommend this system unless your business is making at least $1 million a year and you get most of your leads from YouTube already. Instead, what I recommend is hiring copywriters from the Philippines. Hire a writer that loves YouTube and then teach them your niche. Chances are they are not going to be a subject matter expert. They are not going to know everything about your niche. However, if you hire someone who's good at copywriting and they like to watch YouTube, right? And this is a key question that I always ask people. I always ask them, hey, what is your favorite social media platform? And you wouldn't believe how many people don't say YouTube, even though they're applying to a YouTube job, right? A lot of people will be like, oh, well, I like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, right? I'm like, oh, okay, what's your second favorite? And sometimes they still don't say YouTube. It's amazing. But you want to hire a writer that loves YouTube and binge watches it, because if they watch a lot of YouTube, they're going to know what good content looks like, and therefore they're going to know how to make good content, okay? And hire someone who has a base skill set of either writing or copywriting. Now, this is very affordable. They're relatively fast to train. You can almost 100% automate this process using the anti-fragile methods that I talked about before. And it's easy to find people with this skill set, okay? Now, where to hire? Facebook groups and communities. This is a great place to hire. There's a lot of Philippines-based like copywriting Facebook groups and communities. Another one is this website, onlinejobs.ph. When I first started, this is where I hired people. I hired tons of people off of onlinejobs.ph, and I still hire people for my clients off of onlinejobs.ph. But yeah, this and Facebook groups are a good place to start. Once you have some people on your team, a really good place to hire is from referrals or through your network, okay? So basically just asking people on your team, hey, do you know somebody who's good at script writing? Do you know somebody who's good at video editing, et cetera, and then using your team to hire more good people, right? And you can also offer them a referral incentive if the person ends up staying with you for over 3 months, okay? So these are the 3 best ways of hiring. Facebook groups. Facebook is huge in the Philippines. There's lots of Facebook groups that have copywriters or script writers or just writers in general. Also onlinejobs.ph, and then referrals and network. And honestly, this method is going to be best for like 99.9% of creators. The first method is only good if you're making like a ridiculous amount of money already. So how do I do this? Well, for solo creators, it's you, and you might do the idea generation, the quality control, and the recording. And then the script writers is going to write the entire script, okay? So that's how you do it when you first start. Now, this is one of the hardest non-leadership positions to hire for, but using my method, it becomes a lot easier. You will have to train them for this position 99% of the time. It's almost impossible to find someone that's like plug and play ready, but it's worth it as it will save you a lot of time. Then small team. This means it's going to be you. You'll talk to the creative director, right? So you probably are going to come up with the idea generation. I suppose that's optional. The creative director can eventually do that, but you are going to be recording, generally speaking. And then the creative director, they do the idea generation, the quality control, the overall creative direction. And then the scriptwriter writes the entire script, right? So those are basically the 2 ways of doing it. Now, you're probably going to start off just you talking to the scriptwriter. Maybe the scriptwriter develops into a creative director, who knows? And then eventually, once you have a bit of a bigger team, you're going to want to hire a creative director that can kind of oversee the process. They can oversee the video editors and the scriptwriters to make sure that everything just flows very smoothly. The video editors and the scriptwriters are on the same page, and the end product ends up really good. And the ideal situation is for you to just record. This is where I am right now with my first channel. I'm only working about 1 to 4 hours per week just to record videos for my first channel. That's it, right? There was a time very recently where I think I worked about 6 hours in a 2-month period on my first channel. And it actually grew. It actually was making more money per day and per month at the end of that 2 months than when I was actually working on it. It grew without me, which is amazing. Okay. So, yeah, this is the ideal situation that you want to be in. Is it something that you can do right away? Kind of depends, right? If you work with me and my team, we can help you set this up right away. Book a call down the description, the pinned comment below. But if you try to do this yourself, usually it's going to take quite a bit of time to get this dialed in. Now, how do you find the right scriptwriter? Look for someone that has YouTube channels but are not necessarily successful, yet they still make good content. This is a really big pro tip. Look for someone who is from your audience, right? Because if they're from your audience, they're going to understand your content better. Look for someone who has worked for other YouTube channels. This is another one that is a big green flag. Look for someone who's a copywriter or a scriptwriter or a writer from the Philippines. Copywriter is preferred. And then look for people that are excellent at creative writing and storytelling that also enjoy your niche. And then ask them this: what's their favorite platform, right? And hopefully they're going to say YouTube. And then also ask them who are their favorite YouTubers. And ideally, it's not 100% necessary, but ideally it would be best if they said educational YouTubers. If they don't, that's fine. But then ask them who are their favorite educational YouTubers. And then hopefully, they have some stuff in common and they can speak about these people and why they like these people in detail, right? This is how I found my creative director. I asked him who are his favorite YouTube channels, and I asked him who were his favorite educational YouTube channels. And he talked about a lot of the same channels that I knew, and he was able to describe what he liked about those channels in detail. Okay. So that is a very, very good sign when that happens. But there is another system, which is hiring other talent for your channel. And this is basically where you completely remove yourself from content creation. Now, this is quite rare. I've had 2 or 3 clients that have done this because they wanted to do it. Actually 2 of them did it because they wanted to sell their company and they wanted to completely remove themselves. Usually it's a good idea for you to record your own content because you build up that personal brand, which is a super powerful thing, which you can use to, just do whatever you want. It's just incredibly powerful to have a big personal brand. Think Media is an example of a channel that has done this successfully. Okay, so let's talk about Think Media and how they've done this. Well, this is Sean Cannell, the channel owner, and he hired a bunch of people to make the videos for him. So you can see, there's the guy on the left, the guy in the middle, then the girl on the right, and I think there's even more than that. And sometimes Sean Cannell makes his own videos, but he hired a bunch of these people to make the videos for him. So he completely outsourced himself. So he technically doesn't have to make the videos for his own channel at all anymore. But there's a bit of a problem with this. First of all, the channel is called Think Media and not Sean Cannell. So his personal brand isn't as strong because of the fact that the channel name isn't Sean Cannell or Sean's YouTube tips or something like that, right? And that's a little bit of a problem. And then the second big problem, and this is a massive risk, something like this can happen. This guy actually departed from Think Media and he started his own channel and became a competitor of Think Media, right? So you basically build, like what Sean did is he built this guy's brand up. This guy wasn't well known and he literally built this guy's brand up, and then the guy left and became his competitor, right? So he started his own channel and now he's a competitor to Think Media. So this is a big problem. And we've seen this 100 times, like why I left BuzzFeed, why I left Vox, right? You've seen this, a bunch of people leave news channels sometimes and start their own thing. And so the news channel basically built them up, built their personal brand, and then they leave and they take most of their fans with them, right? And so that is a huge, huge problem of having other people as the talent on your channel. And this is something you need to be very, very careful of. Now, one thing you can do is have multiple people. It's a terrible idea to only have one person as the talent for your channel. That's like a recipe for disaster, unless that person maybe has equity in stock of your company or something. Generally speaking, it's a terrible idea to have that person as the face of your channel. Having multiple is way better. But with that being said, there's still risk even there. So generally, I don't recommend doing this for 99% of channels, just because having a personal brand has way more advantages and way less disadvantages. And yeah, that's basically how you write and produce a script effectively that will make you more money from YouTube while working less hours. Now let me show you how to actually do it by doing it myself. It's a demonstration time. So I'm gonna hop into the computer. I'm gonna disappear because I'm gonna be, I have my head buried in the computer, and I am going to show you step by step exactly how to do this. And I'm literally going to make a script myself. Now I may cut forward in time a little bit, because sometimes, if you prompt Claude, it might take a minute or two to actually write the prompt. So I may cut forward in time. Just for the sake of time, I don't want this video to go too long, but yeah, we're gonna jump into the computer right now. All right, so let's start off with this demonstration. But before everything else, you need to understand that every great script begins with a compelling title that draws viewers in, right? So you have your video idea, which we have right here, and you wanna use existing successful content as inspiration. So for me, I'll be using 9 boring but high-paying remote jobs, always hiring in 2025, because I know that this has worked before. It's existing content. If you don't have any content up, you would want to find something that you either know works for your channel, or you can use the icon method to find a really good idea that's very likely to work for your channel. Of course, I've done lots of trainings on how to find video ideas and the icon method, so check out the other trainings for that. Then create a title that's specific, valuable, and attention grabbing. An example here is 9 boring but ultra high paying remote jobs in 2025. Step 2 is to set up your project knowledge base. So before generating the content, you want to establish your knowledge base in Claude. So go to Claude, go to projects in Claude, create a new project. For me, I'll name it Script Assistant. And by the way, I'm going to be skipping ahead a little bit here because I don't want you to have to watch all the in-between stuff. Then add relevant knowledge to your project. So your content philosophy, client testimonials, content structure preferences, if you have it. Now, additionally, with my main channel, we do have kind of some intellectual property where we basically come up with a system to figure out which jobs have the most demand. And this is a system where we basically counted all the job postings. And because of this, we're able to consistently put jobs on our videos that do have a lot of demand and are hiring for remote jobs. So if you have a list like that in this case, that would be very useful. And then sample transcripts from successful videos. So one thing I'll note here is if you're using the icon method to find the video, you do not want to use the transcript from that video because by definition, that video is bad, right? That's why you chose the video, because it's bad. So you don't want to use a transcript from that video. Instead, you'd want to use a transcript from an inspiration video. So in this particular case, I'm going to be using the 9 boring but high paying remote jobs always hiring in 2025. That's the inspiration video because it worked on my channel already. So I'm literally just showing you what we do for our channel. And then also add any specialized knowledge relevant to your topic. So I'll just go ahead and add everything real quick. Step 3, you want to craft your context goal prompt context section. So tell Claude who you are and what you're working on. For example, I'm a YouTube scriptwriter within the niche of remote jobs and make money online, specializing in remote jobs. I'm working on a script for a video entitled 9 Boring but High Paying Remote Jobs 2025. My content style is informative yet casual, often incorporating pop culture references to make complex topics more relatable and understandable. Then with the goal section, you want to clearly state what you want to accomplish. So my primary goal is to write a video script about boring but ultra high paying remote jobs. I need the script to be written in a way that encourages audience retention using hooks, open loops, anecdotes, and other methods to keep the audience watching. The script should balance being informative and entertaining, similar to the style of Graham Stephan. Then make your specific request. Please create a new and unique script for my video, 9 Boring but Ultra High Paying Remote Jobs 2025, which is over 10 minutes long and provides deep value. Additionally, please take the sample in the project knowledge titled Your Inspiration Video from my own channel and use that as a template for the tone and feel of the script. Step 4, generate a list of topics first. Now, before writing the full script, have Claude generate a list of potential topics. So add to your prompt CGP, give me first the list of 9 remote jobs plus 5 extra so I can pick and choose. Then review Claude's suggestions, then edit the list as needed, adding that you must include items. So an example for me, I want to include financial controller because that's a boring but high paying job. So I'll add that to the list as the first one. And if you're not aware, financial controller is basically a very high level accounting job. Now, step 5 is to create an outline. Once you have your list, ask Claude to structure the content. So you might say, please create the best possible outline for my video, 9 Boring but Ultra High Paying Remote Jobs 2025, which is over 10 minutes long and provides deep value. Use this list for the script. Then you would paste your edited list here. Now again, you can have it come up with the list or you can add your own pieces of the list as well. It really just depends on what you want and how much of your input you want in the list. Step 6 is generate the full script. Now that you have an outline, have Claude write the script. But for now, let's just focus on the first item, financial controller. Next, tell Claude, can you write this script for me based on the outline? Step 7, verify and enhance with research. So don't rely solely on AI-generated content, right? Verify and enhance with real data. So one thing I like to do, for instance, with my niche is I'll check salary information on reliable sites like Glassdoor. So you can search the job title, salary, Glassdoor US. Then you can take screenshots of the salary data, paste it on the script with its link, and that will enhance the script. And one thing that's great is that is something that AI cannot do, right? So this is a way that you can make your videos more valuable than the average people out there that are just adding AI content. To update the script with accurate figures, so you'd basically say whatever it says on Glassdoor, financial controllers make around $120,000 to $150,000 per year. Then you'd add job availability data from LinkedIn. So search for the job title on LinkedIn, screenshot the number of jobs for financial controller, add the accurate information to your script. Then you find a real job posting, right? So you'd search for an actual financial controller job listing. Now in our case, we kind of have a curated list because we've been doing this for a while. But in this example, you might search Google Jobs, for instance, right? And then you take a screenshot of the posting. Probably you would want to put one that was posted in the last few days or very recently. And then you can show the requirements and the responsibilities. And you can use this to discuss what the job actually entails. So we can actually paste the screenshot of the job details and let Claude integrate it into the script, but it would take up a lot of credits, so I prefer not doing that. Easier is to just have the screenshot and then just read it. Step 8, add personal touches and testimonials. So if you want to enhance credibility, use storytelling like we talked about earlier on, which is incredibly powerful. Then you want to add personal touches and testimonials as well as stories. So for our financial controller example, I could give the example of one of my client testimonials. I actually helped out Bill, who is a financial controller, and he teaches accountants how to become financial controllers. And Bill is actually a high-level financial controller who makes over $200,000 a year. And while he admits it's not the most exciting job, right, the compensation absolutely makes it worthwhile. So I can include a little bit about that into the script. And I might even talk about the fact that I actually coached Bill and helped him build up his YouTube channel and also helped him make money from YouTube. And I might even add in a call to action that if you would like to learn how you can build up your YouTube channel as well, then click the link in the description and the pinned comment below to book a demo call, right? So that's an example of a CTA right there. You can do that if you'd like. And that's a really clever way of including a story and also integrating a CTA in with it. Then you can share honest insights about the pros and cons of the role, but if you agree with what Claude wrote, then that's good. Now, if you're not sure about the pros and cons of the role, what you can do is just look up things that people have said on Reddit and Twitter. So Reddit is easy enough. You would just look up the job on Reddit. Twitter, it's even easier because you can use Grok to come up with anecdotes, insights, etc. about the job. And Grok has an unfair advantage because of the fact that it knows the Twitter data in real time, right? So it's plugged into the real-time Twitter data. And so it's really good for coming up with anecdotes. Step 9 is to review and finalize. So for the financial controller section, the script looks like this: an engaging introduction to the role, accurate salary information with visual proof, with the Glassdoor screenshot, job availability data, LinkedIn screenshot, real job requirements, job posting screenshot, a personal anecdote about my client Bill, a balanced perspective on why this boring job is worth considering. Then you can just read through this section to ensure it flows naturally and contains all the key information, and then move on to step 10, which is repeat for additional sections. Now, once you're satisfied with how the financial controller section turned out, you can go ahead and just do the same exact thing with all of the additional sections. So typically what you want to do is, especially if you're making a listicle style video, make sure one of the sections is perfect, do everything you want in that section, and then just basically repeat that process with all of the other sections. So you return to Claude and ask it to complete the remaining jobs in your list following the same format. You apply the same research process, salaries, job listings, examples, etc. Add your unique voice and perspective throughout, and then you're done. That is a full script. And that script would be good enough to put up on my main channel. In fact, there's a very good chance that I will use that exact script on my main channel once it's done. So look out for that. Now, again, if you want systems, processes, exact prompts, templates, etc., we have that all available for free down in the description and the pinned comment below. And if you want to implement this into your existing YouTube channel, if you're an existing YouTuber who wants to either monetize better or build up your team so that you're not doing all the work yourself and streamline things and basically build systems to where you don't have to do that much work, or if you're a business owner who wants to grow and make money on YouTube, then go ahead and book a demo call with me down in the description and the pinned comment below. And we can help you to effortlessly implement this into your business. Now, additionally, check out this video right here where I talk about how I was able to get my channel to 7 figures a year.